Zaxby's, indescribably good.
Fans, and welcome back to the Mo Dixon Show, where tonight we're going to review the Raiders' victory over the Blue Devils of Marietta, and then we're going to jump into that big rivalry week game against the Lassiter Trojans. Easy for me to say, right,
yeah,
Coach?
Right.
You're 2-0. You're a local hero.
Yes.
You guys come away with a 36-28 victory over the Blue Devils in a tough place to play. We talked about that, but kind of what were your takeaways? I mean, a win's a win. And it was, you guys, the boys played very well, but kind of what were your takeaways after you had a chance to think about it over the weekend?
Well, we scored, what, 30-some?
36.
36 points. That was big. Good offensive output. So that was very important to me as a defensive guy. I wanted to make sure that we were putting points on the board, and I thought we did a really good job there. Again, Coach Lassiter called a really good game. We shot ourselves in the foot some still. But we're getting better, and I think people are starting to see the difference in, we're running the ball pretty decent, we're throwing the ball pretty decent, we'll continue to get better at both, and we're starting to get some playmakers, and a lot of other guys are starting to contribute. We're starting to get some kids back, and again, I think Josh had pretty decent numbers again, and I thought our line did a lot better job. Progressed.
Yep.
And defensively, I wasn't real happy at the end of the game. We let them push one in on us, but those guys are playing good ball. Stu does a great job. Chris Stewart, our defense coordinator, and the staff, those guys do a really good job. They got a good plan, and I thought our guys did pretty good. We had Monty was out. He played very sparingly, but when he did come in at the end, made a couple big plays. But he had injured himself earlier in the week, and we were, we felt we were okay, and then when we needed him, we got him in there and made a couple plays. So it's a good win for us. We had a mix-up on special teams. That's on me again.
Right.
Starting to sound like a broken record. But our punter, Chris, he's got a green light on that rugby kick thing.
Exactly right.
And but what we should be discussing is when that green light is.
Exactly, field position.
And quite frankly, he's zoned in and he's trying to help, and it worked against South Gwinnett, and just like he said, Coach, it was all opened up, and all of a sudden, actually, if one guy just stays on his block, we get that first down, and he might have made big yards, but that we all know at that end you don't do that, and that's on us. Again, that's like a scrimmage thing.
Right.
We've got to discuss those things with him. You've got a green light, but here's where we don't have a green light. So that's not on him at all. Again, he does a great job. We are really lucky to have him. We got some good young kickers, but obviously he's already won a game for us, and he's gonna win some more for us. So that being aside, we still got to get that special teams thing going a little bit better too. So,
but 322 yards of total offense. Outgained your opponent by 80 yards. So good offensive output, as you mentioned. KK 159 yards again. I mean, he's just a workhorse.
Yeah, he's.
And it shows the offensive line is coming together.
He's something now. He could set up blocks. Now we've come a long way, I think, up front too, because a guy like KK and of course the Jones kid Tyron, it was he's all world. Those are two exceptional guys that you just got to get in the way, and then they're going to set the block up themselves. And so what can happen to you sometimes is you may not be as physical, because those guys can do the work. So we've really worked hard on that. Coach Evans and Coach K and Coach Lassiter and those guys, they've all been working really hard on staying on our blocks, our traps, really trapping through the hip, and the guys are doing a really good job. So, hopefully we'll execute even better this week.
You mentioned your quarterback, Josh White, 12 for 18, 178 yards. He finds Sam Letton 8 times. They've really got it going. We talked about that a little bit last week, but Sam had 142 yards receiving and a touchdown, and he's really becoming a weapon that is kind of new to Cobb County football, and a really exciting weapon to see on the field.
Well, I think it's obvious that everybody's starting to see what Sam can do. Sam's what is it? He's as good as advertised, and he's grown up in this type of offense. So, and he's just a real smart player. And he's one of 5, 6, 7 guys we've got that are pretty good weapons. And you know what's going to happen, just like a good running back. You know, defense is now going to start. You know, they're going to start doubling him and doing some things probably, and then that's going to open the door for some of our other guys.
Sure.
And that's what a team game's all about. And we'll have to do some other things to shake him loose. And I'll tell you something right now, if you watch him really close, Sam's a really good blocker. Mm-hmm. Sam blocks well. You know, he was our big hit guy. He literally took out 4 guys in 1 block the week before. We were all talking about that. And that was, I don't know if that was luck or what, but that was, I have never seen that before. Yep. So, but he's just a good football player. Sam be a good defense player. So, and again, we've got different weapons. You know, Bailey Kidd is he had a couple of not touchdown runs, but ran a couple kickoffs back pretty good. Mm-hmm. So we've got a lot of guys. We've got a couple of receivers coming back. Q's feeling better now, so we've got some weapons.
You know, defense is harder to play than it was maybe when you and I played high school and college football. The offensive rules are, I'm not whining as an old defensive guy, but, you know, a couple of stops a game mm-hmm. can make all the difference. And I thought that your defense on Friday night was resilient. I mean, you said they let one in late, but, you know, there was a time we were down, 10-8, got a couple of holds, Raiders mm-hmm. score some touchdowns, and suddenly you're back up 22-10, mm-hmm. and they just seem to have stops when you needed them. I mean, obviously you want to be as close to pitching a shutout as you can be, but sometimes it just needs to be a few points less than you score on offense.
Well, I think it's also the style, too. And, I did leave out. We let them run a kickback or a punt back, which was grotesque.
After the long field goal,
right.
We got the punt return.
Grotesque. But anyhow, so we got to keep working on special teams. But exactly. But now the style of ball, too. You're looking at a lot of teams in the area now really throwing the ball around.
Right.
In those days of where we're going to hold somebody, try to hold them to 120 yards of not offense, but rushing and passing front of it's you play just like this week. We're playing Lassiter, and if anybody thinks they're going to slow them down, you just they're a machine.
Yep.
And North Cobb over there, they throw the ball well. We can just keep going on all these offense. Kale's got a great offense. We're going to be running into some teams, different style, but they're really good offensively. The Cherokee County teams, we've been watching those guys really close. They're really throwing some points up and playing pretty brutal football. Roswell goes down to Lowndes, picks a fight with them, and makes a good showing. So we got a lot of teams in our area. They're wide open, yep. And you got to play a wide open defense, which means you got to take some chances, and sometimes it's feast or famine. You make a big play, and when we started running this defense, though, that's what our plan was. I can remember Bob and I talking. He's like, we're playing zero coverage, and you miss tackle, goes 80 yards for a touchdown.
Right.
But over the next 2 or 3 series, you may cost two or three fumbles or turnovers. So, that's how we choose to play. And we'll get better at it.
Well, and you're winning games, and 2 turnovers, 2 takeaways again on Friday night. You had 2 takeaways the previous week, so you've got a good turnover ratio in terms mm-hmm. of the plus-minus there. But at the end of the day, Coach, 36-28 at a tough place against a tough opponent. Mm-hmm. That's a good win. We're going to take a break, get a couple of words from our sponsor, Zaxby's, 2 locations in East Cobb, and then we're going to come back and talk about those Lassiter Trojans and what we like to call the East Cobb rivalry. We'll be right back.
Zaxby's, indescribably good.
3, 2, 1, go. All right, welcome back. We've talked about the Marietta game, and now we're going to talk about those Lassiter Trojans. Raiders travel up the road a piece, 10 minutes, I think, to go see Lassiter on Friday night, Coach. And read something the other day, first time since 2007, which is when my son was a senior, Lassiter's 0-2, lost 2 close games. They lost to Hillgrove. And they lost to Kell on Friday night. Mm-hmm. Kell came back, scores a touchdown, basically the last play of the game. Mm-hmm. But an offense, potent offense. You know, Russell Aarons, their quarterback, 23 of 30 for 340 yards passing on Friday night, and a pair of running backs that, you know, each had almost 80 yards on 16 and 14 carries. I mean, they're coming at you from every direction on offense. You've seen them before. You know, what's your take on the Trojans, what we're going to see traveling there on Friday night?
Well, Jep and I go way back. We're both from Kentucky. We're both from southeast Kentucky. And he's a good guy, class guy. We're also we're in the brotherhood of the Tony Franklin system. And nobody does that better than Jep. Jep is probably Tony's number 2 guy in his in that association or cult, whatever you want to call it, what we do. But he does a great job. Does a great job for his kids. He's a winner, and he is going to have a high-powered offense. And you know, it's not an offense you're going to stop. You just got to make the right plays at the right time, and you know, gain field position and things like that. But I'll tell you what he's got also. You know, he's always going to have a good quarterback, a very well-coached quarterback. That's the thing about his quarterbacks. If you've ever seen him speak or you ever sit and talk with Jep, I mean, he is just so meticulous. I mean, it's just, I can remember early in career running this, when I was in Florida, running this stuff and watching him speak on how he teaches quarterbacks. And he does a really good job. And but his kids, you know, he's got a good football team. He's got some daggone good running backs too. You know, they're running the ball well. Got good receivers. They're going to screen you. They again, they've got a good running game, and of course, naturally, they're going to run a plethora of Tony Franklin stuff that you may know what's coming, but it's just they know how to block those things and at the right time. It's all about timing, and they do such a good job. And they've played a great schedule. I mean, what we're going to get from Lassiter is exactly what Jep has said his preseason. In his pre-region schedule. You know, he went against North Cobb in his scrimmage in a game, a real game.
They won that.
And so they played North Cobb, you see what North Cobb did last week, and went into North and upset North. Then he's played Kell and he's played Hillgrove. So he has played, he's taken 3 weeks and played 3 powerhouses. Yep. So those kids have been up against powerhouses. So, you know, that's they're well seasoned already. So we've got our work cut out for us. Plus, it's the 3rd place, and everybody feels good at home. So hopefully we'll bring a good crowd. You know. So, but they're a good football team. Their defense, they're sort of young on defense, but at the same time, defensively, they're playing young kids because they've got some really good young talent. So they play the same style defense we do, and. So it's going to be tough now. They're going to be moving around and bringing some pressure on us, and they do a good job of that. They play very aggressive, and naturally it's a rivalry game, so that thing's going to seesaw back and forth. So, what
are some of the big rivals you've been a part of as a coach? I mean, you've coached at Burns last year up in South Carolina. They've got some big ones. North Gwinnett, of course. As you look back over your career, Coach, what are some of those rivalries that stick out that you were a part of?
Well, being a hometown guy in Hazard, Kentucky, the MC Napier and the Hazard Bulldog, the city school, that was a big rivalry, like all small towns. North Broward, we really didn't have rivalry. It was we were building the program, and you know, it was an infant type stage. At North, it's just like it is here. Every weekend seems like every weekend was a rival.
Somebody close by.
Yeah, and you know, as it progressed, and all those teams. I mean, us in Collins Hill, us in Peachtree, us in Norcross, and that was all. That's just Georgia. Now Burns was different. There was Burns and Gaffney. Right. That was the big game there, because Gaffney is got a lot of athletes, and those two teams that go at it. Dorman was a pretty big one too. So that's been pretty much, when we were at Lexington Catholic, we you know, rivalry wise, we were young then. You know, we were in infantile stages there. We were building that program. So as far as being at there's very few private schools in Kentucky, so everybody hates us. So
how do you manage the kids on a weekend like this? Because everybody, listen, all their friends are talking about it in the hallway. The parents are talking about it. Do you have to kind of keep their feet on the ground a little bit more than you might in a normal game, or you just kind of let them, you know, see where they're going and, you know, catch them when you can? Or How do you
Well,
approach
I
that?
tell you, I think one thing happens is this, is because I have been known, I've moved, I've been in a few places. So, you know, for one, like with me, it's not ingrained in me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of business as usual.
Right.
But with the kids, I think that helps there because there's not as much talking about the actual individual game, and I'm sure it's being handled the same way over there too.
Mm-hmm.
But as coaches, we don't really have to play that up. Usually, you get a decent week of practice because they're sort of focused on that game. You can tell when the kids, like the Hazard Napier game I was telling you about when I was and I coached at Hazard
Mm-hmm.
against my old school, so that got real weird.
Yeah.
That happens in Southeast Kentucky sometimes.
There's a lot of it.
But
We'll talk about
we're
that
all
later.
good people there. We're all good people. You know, you enemy one day, and best friends the next. But anyhow, you know, those games like that, you're going to get them. We never had to worry about those kids because they would be watching film. You didn't have to. You're not trying to make them sit up and watch. So that sort of takes care of itself. Actually, it helps to play. I think it's something that makes Georgia so good because there's so many rivalries. Then it's a week to week thing. Whereas in some schools where you just got that one big one, I think it might hurt you some in other places, you know. So.
Well, and it changes over the years. I think back kind of to the mid 2000s. It was Roswell. Lassiter,
Mm-hmm.
It was not Lassiter. It was Roswell, and Roswell was ranked nationally and things of that sort. And and it shifted over the last few years to the Lassiter rivalry and all the way down to the great semifinal game here. And you know, Hudson Mason had some great games against the Raiders. So it's a rivalry that has shifted over time. And but you're right. I mean, every week you either have somebody come here or you go on the road and. You know,
it is. It's like that. It's
it.
like that here, and you know, Coach Lett was already even talking about that. You know, and we've just tip of the yes, and it's. I remember when we first came to Georgia. That's just how it was. You know, I can remember pulling in Collins Hill, and it was 4:30, and people were coming in, and we're like, I think this is a big game. And you know, I thought last week, the week before,
had been a big game.
yeah. So it was just. And I think it helps the kids, and I think that's what helps the kids in Georgia. That's why there's so many scouts come here because these kids play at a lot different level than in a lot of states. You know, there's a lot of. I mean, I know at Burns when we were at Burns, you know, there was 4 or 5 teams that could play with them. That was about it.
Right.
You know, here it's not like that every weekend. You know, so and I don't mean that in a bad way, but that was the truth.
Yeah.
And but those guys have built that program up. You know, when Bobby would talk about how he had to build that up from when they just won 2 games. So. Everybody's got to get and everything's changed. You get new schools. That's another thing that changes a lot of this stuff.
Exactly. I mean, we keep getting, particularly in Fulton County, they've had a lot of schools, and the rivalries shift because of that. So, Coach, you love football. You live for it. You spend a lot of time watching football. This weekend, first weekend of college football season, did you get a chance to watch any college football? I know you watched a little high school football, but what about the college front? Did you watch anything that
I watched.
Jumped out at you?
I watched the Georgia game. Watched. Actually, I was really. I usually, I'm a defensive guy, but I really watch them offensively because they've got a really good running game. Watching what they do, Coach Rick's real good with play action stuff. So that interested me. Let's see, who else did we watch? Give me a game or two. I watched games all day.
Did you watch the Texas A&M game, or were you busy?
No, I didn't get to watch that one.
Alabama, West Virginia?
Watched some of that. Got a kid playing there, Austin Shepard. Watched some of that game. So I wanted to see Tyron get in. I guess they're going to keep putting him on hold for a little bit, but he's going to have a good career there. Yeah, that thing there at Alabama, that's all about attrition, man. Just like Shepard, he had a redshirt year and actually graduated and still had 2 years. So
well, that's the thing
those guys can get some extra college there, but when you go there, that's the best of the best. And
Tyron redshirted last year. He's played 1 game of his official career. We all kind of forget that.
Well, he's at the
careers are a long time, and he's an elite player, and
he's at the place.
And he is at the place, and I was at the game. It was interesting. It was interesting to watch that, and then. I think the Wisconsin LSU game. I mean, I'm a guy that grew up in Big Ten country, and I just sit there and watch. Like, why can't they beat the SEC? And I don't need any fan mail or anything to answer that for me. But Yeah, the Badgers had them, and they let them off the hook. And
Oh,
LSU,
absolutely.
LSU just warmed down.
I watched the Louisville Miami game last night. Those are two teams I like a lot.
That was brutal to watch if you were a Miami fan, and I'm not. But it was. So it's a long season. The pros kick off in a couple of days here, and I'll be right with the world, everybody. High school football, pro football, college football. From now until January 8th or 9th. Well, February.
And Walton football and Walton Youth League football.
Exactly. So if you want to watch football at Walton, you can show up on Thursday and pretty much stay here through Saturday night.
Yeah,
and there'll be something going on in the fields.
Yeah, if we can get cable, in our field house, we could stay there all. We just have big. In between games, we just go watch games, man.
Well, then if you got cable stuff, then Pete and I would ask for bigger contracts.
Yeah, there we
we'd
go.
have to ask for more than just wings, but anyway,
we could do that.
We're on the road this week. Go see the Lassiter Trojans. So here's what you do: you get home about 4:30. You get your dinner. You head up there a little bit early. Gonna have to park kind of behind the stadium. It's not the easiest place to park, but you'll figure out your way there. The band's going to be on one side of the stand, so you want to get there early too, because you're kind of cramped in there on the visitor side. But with our band there and our fans there and our team there, we look forward to that game against the Trojans on Friday night. And Coach, 2-0 start. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Talk about, 3-0 start. But you didn't say that, I did. And we'll see you next week for the Mo Dixon Show, sponsored by Zaxby's. Raiders are 2-0. Why don't you come on up to Lassiter, see that game, Trojans and Raiders. It's one of the best in Georgia. It's always a good one. And we'll see you next week for the Mo Dixon Show, sponsored by Zaxby's.
Support the kids, man. We need you.